Wele, yeah. Oh, madoda. Zatsho madoda ezaseBotswana. Zangicingisa kude kulabathwenengi. Naki muthu wa Motswene. Naki muthu wa go Khiba wa go Khamadi wa go Khiba wa go Khamadi ya phofolo. Iphemphem neqhakupa ngenxawana. Umuntu wokurhwala emgodleni. Greetings, my people. Greetings. Today, you're not going to see my face. You're not going to see my face. We're going to deal with some impertinent matters. My people, I hope you enjoyed the music. I always play some music before, we can start, because I believe that it sets the tone, It sets the tone, rightly so, before we begin to get into these heavy subjects. Today, I want to, as I normally do, when I talk about these things, I always do my best to relate seemingly unrelated matters. Today, I want to talk about the title of this live is Bandu Invaders, ? First Nation ? You see, it's important that we learn, my people. It's very, very important that we learn. Please don't forget to share the live and like the live and all that. We have to learn every day. We must find a way to learn even more. Years ago, when I was younger, elders would gather us in the evening before we sleep. Elders would gather us and teach us about stories that they were told by their forefathers. I recall very well the story of the bull called Dulub and the monster called Gongong. I remember that story very well because that was a story about a concept that has seemed to take quite the center stage, the concept of death and life. The story of Dulube and Amagongong talks about death and resurrection. Dulube is a bull, Gongongo are ogres and or monsters that seem to want to, destroy this bull, to kill this bull, to eat this bull. But the bull is able to come back to life on command. The bull, Udulube, is able to actually come back to life. So the bull does not die. Even the Gongongo are trying to kill the bull. I remember a song my mother would say, Dulube, Dulube, Kaubalege, Dulube, Hamakongongo, Dulube, Azosbulala, Dulube. Women, when they say these stories, they are very dramatic. They change the voice. They sing mid story. They tell you idioms, and it's such a nice thing, rich with language. But when I went deeper into the story of Dulube, the bull, and the story of Gongong, the monster, I realized that Dulube was actually not just a bull. Dulube was a human being was a bull who was able to switch and become human, back into bull and back into human. I decided to go further into other cultures to see if they had a similar story. I come across the Nama people, the Kwekwe Gwab. I find a similar story about this bull that sings. They call this bull Haiseb, but the name Haiseb means the one of the bush. When I gather the name Haiseb is because this bull used to sing about the forest and about trees. That's why they call this bull Haiseb. I further learned that this bull is actually also tricked into falling into a deep hole by this thing called Gong Arib or Gong Arib. Exact same thing that the Amaxhosa call Amagongong. The Nama say Gong Arib or Gong Arib. Then I realized, damn, it's the exact same thing. These people are talking about the same story. I decided to go back into the story my parents told me, find out the meaning of gongong. I realized no, gongong comes from the word ukuti gong. Gong is to fall and form a hole. You see, for example, if someone hits another person in the skull, in the head, there's a furrow, some kind of a hole that forms there. We describe that as ukuti gong. So to fall into a hole is ukuti gong. But then now to plunge deep into a hole is the word gong. Then I realized, no, it's the exact same meaning with the Nama people. The Nama people have gong arib or gong arib, which means the one who plunges into the deep hole. Now, holes in our culture are very important. Holes, round things, are very important in our culture because we do everything in a circle. Ilanga has circular shape, the sun, the moon, circular shape. Cosmic bodies, they move around in a circular shape. You understand? Celestial bodies. I mean, if you know anything about some of the what do they call it, Gonja? I forgot. Fibonacci sequence, I think. These things are always circular. Now, for us, that is a kind of replication of how celestial bodies always tend to move about a central figure that is normally some kind of star. The sun is one example. The sun is one example. A massive star with celestial bodies or cosmic bodies. Yes. So what we do, we replicate. Siyafuzisela. This is exactly what you see with the dancing around the fire. This is exactly what you see with how we sit in the traditional house. We sit in a manner that replicates what is above and so below. As you see in the middle of the house, we have the fire hearth, the fireplace, because we replicate what we observe in cosmic bodies, in celestial bodies. And our forefathers understood this. But the thing with holes is that it goes even deeper than just looking at the sun and all that. Holes for us are, in many aspects of our culture, our places of origin. Holes are our places of origin. But maybe Gongongo is a creature that lures people into this hole. So the hole is not just a physical hole, but some kind of a portal. It's a kind of a portal from a state of life to a state of no more life, unalived. So Gongongo represents death in essence, represents death. Whereas Dulube, Haiseb, represents life. That's why Dulube plunges into the hole, or Dulube dies and Dulube resurrects. In all the stories I've heard, this cow always survives. It resurrects from the hole. And Dulube goes further to live life. And this cow ends up being equated to other entities, such as Tiqwab, such as Aumata, which we know as Tiqo and Kamata. Now, when we tell these stories, it's almost as if they're separate, but it's the stories about the same thing, ancient kings. Now, how we see ancient kings as bulls is something that makes sense because for us, the bull is a symbol of power. For us, the bull is a symbol of power. The bull is a symbol of authority. So kings are seen as bulls because a king is a king so long as his bloodline is active. And what is the difference between a bull and an ox? Is that a bull can procreate. A bull can procreate, can actually mate and create more of itself. And a king is a king because, particularly among the many other things that a king is important for, a king is important especially because it can procreate. That's why we say inkunzi ehlabayo, a bull that gores or that pierces. Because you cannot be inkunzi, you cannot be a bull if you cannot procreate. You are no longer a bull, you are an ox. You are an ox. African observer, Israelite. These are Hamite cows. No, man, these are natural cows. These are cows of the earth. There's no such a thing as a Hamite cow. A cow cannot be Hamite. It's just a cow. It's just a cow, man. Don't be like that. There are many different kinds of cows, and they're all bred with each other. These cows, they interbred. So a king is a king because a king can procreate. And without its ability, the king's ability to procreate, a king is but a name. A king is but a name. African Observer, Israelite, you are blocked because you are stupid. I don't deal with stupidity. Now, let's talk about the importance of holes, because I want to relate a story. You see, these are ancient beads. These are ancient beads, and one of the ways that we used to create our beads was to make little apertures at the center of the bead. Regardless of what the bead is, make little apertures, connect with a string to the next bead, and it is through these holes that we're able to connect all these different beads. It is through these holes at the center. And that's very important to understand. Now, the holes you find in the stories that we are told by our fathers. I want to talk about Matiang. Some of the Botswana, Basotho communities, some have forgotten these stories, but some will remember. Some will remember. Some of the Botswana talk about Matiang. They also say Matiang is the one who was behind the whole thing of creation. Imvelo, nature. You see the name we use for nature, we say indalo, from the word ukudala, to create. But also we say imvelo because imvelo comes from an essential word which means ukuvela, to peep out of or to appear out of. The word imvelo means to appear out of, ukuvela, to appear out of. So imvelo is those who appeared. Those who appeared. It's very important to understand there's a difference between imvelo and inzalo, because inzalo comes from ukuzala. You are born of someone, but imvelo is that which appears. Now, there are stories that we are told. For example, among some of the Botswana communities, there are caves there, and there are footprints on the ground. And when you ask some of the communities, those at least who still remember, they will tell you about Matiang. Matiang, together with the likes of Lowe. Now, Lowe is referenced in Setswana culture and other related cultures as beings who lived in ancient times. So when they say in ancient times, they will say in the time of Lowe, since the times of Lowe, this has been our tradition. Lowe is like long ago, since the early dawn of our origin, our existence. So firstly, the first human beings and the first animals came out of Lowe, near Muchudi in Botswana, emerging from a hole 9 to 12 feet deep in a rock in a dry riverbed. On the rock surrounding the hole can be found engravings of footprints of men and wild animals. These are footprints of the first creatures. One of them, pointing toward the hole, is the footprint of Matiang, the one-legged creator who retired into the hole when he was disappointed with his creatures. In some versions of this myth, by the way, Lowe is the first one, is the one who created, and Matiang worked for Lowe. Matiang was ordered to open a hole and make the first creatures. Later, Lowe imprisoned Matiang in the hole and became the first chief of some of the communities. In another version of the myth, Matiang was actually God. And I'm using these words. I will contextualize this. Matiang was God, and Tobeka was the first servant of God. And Tobeka had only one leg. Matiang left another footprint in another place on a rock near the hill, Poe. The first human being to come out of the hole was a girl, Matuomiane, who had two brothers, both named Matuome, and who were also created there. The girl had orders regarding the cattle. She was appointed to head the cattle. The brother Matuome came out, and without permission, he led the cattle around the end of a mountain. This enraged his sister, who possessed medicine for the preservation of life and death, that she returned to the hole, carrying with her precious medicine. Because of this, diseases and death came into the world and prevailed to this day. Now we know these are stories. These are stories. Now, in stories, what you look for is allegorical lessons. You don't take stories literally. You look for deeper meaning. The most constant theme in these stories is that there's an emergence out of holes. People came out of holes. And I've heard a similar story before about people who came out of a kind of hovering raft made of reeds. They literally peeped out of reeds. The reeds were sort of like there on the ground, and people came out of the reeds, literally from inside the reeds, not like amongst the reeds. So there's a constant theme amongst our people to have emerged out of holes. They came out of holes. Just like some of the Botswana tell you that some of the first human beings came out of holes. Bavela, hence we call them imvelo. Bavela abantu bokuqala, the first human beings appeared out of holes, in caves, underground, in the reeds. So when we talk about holes, we understand they carry some level of divinity for us. In fact, if you go to the Eastern Cape, there's a place called Hole in the Wall. You talk to the villagers, they will tell you that this place acts as some kind of a portal, such that on some days when it's quiet, you can hear the songs from the water people singing near the waters. It's not me, it's the people from these areas who say these things. So there's a constant theme of people coming out of the ground, people coming out of the holes, people coming out of the caves, the earliest form of our ancestors, the earliest chiefs of our ancestors came out of holes. Now, what does it mean that our people came out of holes? Why do the Botswana insist that the earliest chiefs came out of holes? Why do they insist that Matiang had one leg, was a one-legged being, and the first chief? Why do they insist that the likes of Lowe, Matiang, were one-legged creatures who came out of holes and ruled over our people in the earliest times? What are they telling us that we're not understanding? Perhaps if we go to some of the other communities, like the Nama people and the Kwekwe speaking people, perhaps we'll understand a bit more into this story that the Botswana and the Nguni people are saying, that their ancestors came from the holes, from apertures, from holes that were formed out of caves, and some had one leg. Before I go into the holes, do you understand the whole story of one leg? Do you understand what it means, the one-legged theme that we find in these stories? Remember, I explained to you that Tiko came from an old story. Twikwab, the knee that has been wounded. Ijingwa. In isiXhosa we say ukujingela is to walk limping, as if you're walking with one leg. To walk limping. Ujingwa is the one who's been caused to walk on one leg, aka Tikwab. Umlenze munye isiZulu, umlente ngamunye in Siswati. What do the Basotho and the Botswana people say? They speak of Matiang. They speak of Lowe. In fact, some even take it further and say it's Tobecha who had one leg. Tobecha who had one leg. So there's a story of limping, and it's constant. from the Nama to the Kwekwegoa peoples, to the Xhosa, to the Zulu, to the Swati, to the Tswana peoples. Do you understand when I say you need to learn your history? I'm not saying learn the history of the Zulu, learn the history of the Sotho, learn the history of the Xhosa. I'm saying learn the history of the people of this land, who are all your people. It's not just one group or the other group, all of them, because they come from the same thing. All their stories are literally the exact same thing. Sibuya emhlangeni, we emerged from the reeds. We emerged from the reeds. This is not a new story. It's not new at all. I explained earlier how in the Nama and Kwe communities, they talk about Haitsep. But Haitsep also is the same one who led these people through the waters. Now, if you understand the story of the water and the story of the reeds are one and the same thing. Because through the reeds is through the water. Haitsep is the same one we call Tikwab. It's Tiko. Haitsep is Tiko. Tiko is Mlenze Ngamunye. Mlenze Ngamunye is Mlente Munye. Mlente Munye is Matiang or Lowe. Same thing. Literally the exact same thing. These are not things that came with a Bible. These are stories from our ancestors. In fact, Tiko is Kamata. I explained how Kamata, the name Kamata means the chief father of all. The first one and the earliest one. AKA Umveli Ngangi. Why you say Umveli? Because ukuvela is to appear, to emerge out of. Like the moon disappears and appears. Iyatshona ivele, umatshona vela. Like the moon dies and resurrects, umafevuka. So when we say umveli ngangi, ukuvela is to appear, to emerge. It's not to be born, ukuvela. When you give birth, you don't say divelise. No, you say dizele. But when something appears of itself without someone else making it to appear, iyavela. Hence, umveli ngangi. Ngangi or nganji or ngangi or kala. All of these words mean first. The one who emerged first. What are the Batswana saying? They are saying the one who emerged first is who? They are saying it's Matiang. They are literally saying the first human beings and animals came out of Lowe. Emerging. Ukuvela. Emerging from a hole. Deep in a rock, in a dry riverbed. Do you understand that the story of emerging is what we have to talk about? In a hole. This same hole, it's a hole that people are able to emerge from. But it's also a hole that people are able to sink in. Like Harib does with Haitseb. Like Gongongo does with Dulub. Trying to trick Dulub to plunge into this hole. It's hard to come out of this hole. It's hard to come out of this hole. So this hole, what is it? Is it a portal of some sort? Hell yeah, it is. Remember what I explained sometime when I had a live about the underwater beings? That when you get taken by the underwater beings, you go deep into the surface, the bottom of the sea. And there you are met by Khanti or Goloma in Ndlondlo. But that Ndlondlo itself sits upon a hole-like thing filled with white clay. Holes are to be found everywhere. Holes are to be found everywhere. And it is these holes that show us certain points and portals of power and energy. These are sacred sites. These are sacred sites. For them to be sacred, you don't need, pastors or whatever. You don't need the government to call them sacred. They are sacred because our ancestors understood. They understood that if the history that is buried in these places There is history that is buried in these places that cannot be undone. You understand? So all these stories about plunging into a hole, all these stories about plunging into a hole are not just stories to make children sleep. In fact, the tram kaqe, they've said when you dance around the fire during kwaqen, koma in Sesotho, during kwaqen, when you dance around the fire during kwaqen and you die, meaning you fall into a trance in a state of tum, then you can descend into a hole with water underground. Do you understand what I just said? Remember, I've told you before, some, when they reach the state of tum, they ascend up and communicate with celestial bodies. Some, they descend down into a hole still, filled with water underground. You travel underneath the earth into another place far away. So these whole are physical representations of energy levels that when you reach, you can access something beyond. When you come up, you might see a giraffe that might take you somewhere. You see a beam of light stretching up into the sky, but it's like a rope. It has black parts in it all the way up that you can climb. You can climb it to top like that. On the way up, you even meet someone coming down. When you come back into this world, you are lying next to the fire where the others are dancing. You can even see blood coming out of your nose. They've covered you. They've jumped back and forth over your body. The wind from that has woken you up. You stand up, and that's how you go to the sky. This is exactly why you see drawings of giraffes on the walls of South Africa. You think it's just art. It's not art, Baba. It's not art. This is ancient history. These are records. These are records. So it becomes now important. It becomes very important for us to understand the origins of the things that we do today, because without understanding the origin, you do not understand the gravity of what you involve yourself in. This is why we see sangomas everywhere on TikTok, being influencers, and the next thing they are pastors everywhere being pastors, the next thing they're sangomas. They're confused. They are confused. They don't have a clue what they're doing. Even the people who are training them don't have a clue. And I'm not saying that people should not do things. It's none of my business what people do with their lives. It's my business, though, when they start to take historically sacred practices and mess up with them. When they take historically sacred practices and dilute them with their own additions. So the holes that we say we come out from, it's also the hole that you see in the woman's body. It's also the hole that you see in a man's body. A representation of a what? A portal. Life-giving portal and life-taking portal. This is why when we bury in ancient times, Kamaku observer, Kamaku. This is why when we bury in ancient times, we did not just dig a hole to put you in it. We dug a hole, but you did not stay in that hole. As we dig a hole deep, we dig another one on the side for you to stay there, like a cocoon. I always reference Mandela's burial because people don't understand how Mandela was buried. Cameras were switched off. I always reference Mandela's burial because Mandela's burial, they were like, cameras must be what? Must be removed. Because now we're about to do something ancient, something that can be shown on TV. The gentleman was buried into a hole, But then another hole was dug on the side of the same hole he's in, such that his gifts that he's given, his parting gifts, and whatever accompaniments are given to him, he can go with them peacefully. This is exactly why we would also take little beads of gold, to accompany those who have passed. It's not because we are just, making things up. No, we understand that there's energy that must be harnessed. I hope by this point, people who've been joining these lives are starting to understand what it means to do things in a secular formation, which we always do. We do things in a secular formation, we do things in a bow formation. It harnesses the energy field of this dimension that we are in. You see, the Zulu warriors, when they sit in a horseshoe formation, like a bow. Or shall I say, like the bark of ancient Kemet. The sheep that transport the sun in the sky from sunrise to sunset. You go to the walls of Egypt, you see a bow-like sheep. They call it the solar bark. This is the exact same solar bark that we sit when we are being addressed by the king, who is a symbol of the sun. We call it isicheme ngesizulu. It's called isicheme ngesizulu. A bow-like formation. A bow-like formation. Morena Limakara, talk to us about Matiang, my brother. Talk to us. Why do you say you people come from the hold? What did your forefathers tell you?
Greetings, sanibonani, dumelang, madume. Siyacama kwisha endlini yaka waMadzikane wena womthweneni. KaSisuthu. I just want to cut to the chase. The word Lesotho ha se lebitso la pleke fela. Ke batla hore the word Sotho wa nkutlwa ke reng ha ke re Sotho ke re Sotho. Hantle Sotho ke phahla ke phahla e ya bafumahadi. Ha o nkutlwa hantle ke sure ke portal ena ya bafumahadi. Jwale ha re Lesotho re tswa Lesotho wa nkutlwa hore ke reng, we are saying we come from those or that portal. Ke Lesotho he leo. Jwale ba re Lesotho hantle ba bua ka mpa ya mosadi kapa the portal. Jwale he ka ha o re Basotho kapa Batswana ba re ba tswa ha ba bua ka ntswana tsatsi kapa ha ba bua ka pali ena ya Matiang lore ba tswa mokoting. Ke ona mokoti o. It's metaphorical. Wa utlwisisa? It's a portal. So it's the physical portal and the female portal.
Yes.
Ha eba neng wa nkutlwa ke a leboha. Ha ke batle ho ya lolololo wena ngwaneso. Ke batla o e beha fela jwalo hore batho ba e utlwisise ka Sesotho kapa ke tla re abantu ba izwisise ngesintu. What do we mean? Jwale ha motho a re o tswa Lesotho kore o utlwisise hore ke batla hore ke tla e beha fela jwalo. Ke a leboha.
Hi, thank you, Mrena. You heard it for yourself, guys. It's in reference to a portal, a hole that. I want to take it a step further and say, even in KZN, when they say sihlenge isilulu, or some say isilulu skamalandela, this is not isilulu, but it's the closest representation I can get of isilulu. Isilulu is a bit smaller there in the mouth, but it's the same kind of basket. but a bit smaller in the mouth. I was telling this other gentleman who says that when they say Islulus Malandela, they mean Ukuti, they come from Malandela, the people of Zimbabwe. Hey, he's mixing up things. It's my brother. Oh, he says it's a ship. It's an ancient ship that people took from North Africa down to South Africa. They were on a ship. That's a problem because Islulu is listened. Islulu is a euphemistic word for isend. It's a testicle. If you would see the basket called Islulu, is actually a basket that looks like a testicle. Even this one, it looks like one testicle. Yabo. It literally looks like one testicle. So Isilulu skamalandela is a word that is used to refer to abantwana basebukhosini. But lack of knowledge will make you say things that you do not know. When they say izintombi zesilulu, those are the royal princesses. Amadodana esilulu or abesilulu skamalandela, those are royal bloodline descendants, people who came out of the semen, came out of the incindi yesende kamalandela uqobo. So these are children who are legitimate, who have a legitimate claim to the bloodline or the royal blood of royalty of umalandela. So when we talk about these things, people try to manipulate the story and change it. Islulu, tina siphuma kisilulu because Islulu is a great ship that we were on. No, Baba, that's not what it refers to. It's euphemism. We call it euphemism. So I just want to corroborate what you, Brother Makara, you are saying about portals, holes. When people say there are holes. Now, the physical Isilulu, the physical one, the things that stay there is grain. It's a storage for grain. What is grain? Grain is what we used to eat. It could be unyaloti. It could be amabele. It could be amazimba. Different types of grain. But it was a storage basket. I have it, but I can't show the full picture. I don't know what the problem is. But euphemistically, when people say Islulu, they're referring to isand, straight. Straight. That's it. So I was shocked when someone was trying to manipulate the meaning now to say, Nas Islulu, I think figure, yeah. Nas Islulu. You're not gonna see the proper thing, but you can see the shape, especially B. You can see how it looks. It looks like a scrotum. Okay, let's go back to the point. The point I'm saying is that we've got allegory. We've got allegory that represents certain things we want to preserve. For us to preserve our knowledge, it was not in books. For us to preserve our knowledge was in stories. Stories that were told allegorically or figuratively. Now, when we speak figuratively, that is not for children to understand. It's for elders. When we were younger, we thought certain things were certain things. Now we're no longer younger. We seek truth. I repeat, when we were younger, we thought certain things were what A, B, and C. It's like when you go to watch cartoons, SpongeBob SquarePants, or whatever cartoons you used to enjoy as a child. But now you realize, this is what these people were doing in these cartoons. I didn't even see it as a child. Because ukhulile. We call this kind of speech ukunsela. Ukunsela is to speak figuratively. Thank you, Nondwaiza. And iketseba is a figurative way of hiding the real meaning. We say, unamaketseba. They speak figuratively. It's not easy to understand what they're saying. But those now who have opened their eyes, we can pick up when someone is speaking in the form of ukunsela, ukuqhetseba, ukukhala. Hence, we have what we call amaqhalo. Because when you khala, you speak in a hidden way. Only a few will understand. Only a few will understand. That's That's why even people who are in these things called secret societies, you'll never be able to see them unless you understand exactly how they operate. You will never be able. Arms, my brother, talk to us.
Phakathi
Kamagu, Kamagu.
ngiyathemba noko nabelane ngawo nonke lo molo nohlulelane ningabi namona bethu sibancinci man ningabi nomona ngomolo bhuti wami mna ndizawuphefumla kweli cala le language
Yes.
apho uye wathi they were hidden in like metaphorically they were
Jambas, sasekhona.
Vakali?
Hey, andikuva Jambas.
Oh no, ndithi there was a live that was talking about what do you call these things? Indlela yofihla man izihlonipho and all of that. Yes. So mna apho ndizawuphefumla khona is kulena ke ngoku yanamhlanje xa ndiyidibanisa nale ya ne. So andithi mos kukho sinezigaba zentetho or let me rather see izafobe yabo.
Yes.
So kwizafobe mos unaso isimntwiso isifaniso zonke isikweko yonke lando. So in a way how izinto were preserved and zazihlonitshwa ngakhona okanye kuthethwe ilanguage mhlambi engafunekanga iviwe ngumuntu ongekafiki kwesi sikolo okanye in this initiation stage. So kwake kusetyenziswe izinto ezinje umzekelo izaci amaqhalo kuye kuthiwa mhlambi umuntu xa inethemba kakhulu umzekelo ngento engekenzeki kuthiwa hayi ungalahli igugu mbombo uyaqhosha. So mhlambi kuzawube kanti kuhletywa umntu okwalapha qha mna ndincokola nawe but sihleba lokuba sibona i-excitement yakhe uba excited but andiyithembanga and then sithi hayi igugu lingalikhulu umbombo uyaqhosha. Yena akazuyi-understand okanye akazuyiva laa nto uba isingisele phi uyabo okanye iyaphi. So uzawuhlala confused. Hence why ke ngoku I always say that in the midst of abelungu in trying to confuse and brainwash us balibala into enye ne. Let me not say balibala into enye ne. We are so complex and izinto zethu are so in tune in nature to the point that baba confused kwabona in the midst of trying to confused. So ezinye izinto baqonda hayi wethu sabe sibuye hayi sidikiwe lena masiyeke ngoku because they couldn't figure out the language and what it meant and izinto bazigcinwa njani within language. Hence why kuthiwa not all lessons are taught in a book. Bona mos they document everything. Tina, we keep it through archives as stories ne-language. So kuyo yonke loo nto leyo they couldn't decipher into ye-language so bayiyeka yabaconfusa baconfuseka kwabona in the midst baqonda okay hayi masiyiyeke lena sakhabe sithi it's a lost language or ilahlekile sabaxelela loo nto. So ngamanye amazwi ezinto zibunje like izaci zezokwenza ulwimi lwethu lube mnandi zilinika incasa uyabo. So because mosikudala sasinendlela zethu of having fun. So one of them was uncasanisa ulwimi olu uyabo ngendlela maniphela apho bhuti.
Camagu Jambas. Camagu Jambas. Hey, it is true, you know. We embrace and we promote our language through using hidden speech, and we preserve hidden speech through we preserve it through securing strata in society, like orders. A child, an elder, there's a specific way you are expected to speak. It's just that I don't usually use my language here, because if I would use my language, it would be too complex. Amzo, as you know, it would be too complex. Kungayingxaki. Kungayingxubakaxaka. Abantu abaninzi ingabetha ngaphi kumbe ngapha. xa sele ndingena nzulu kunganga ndiyanxaxa kanti andinxaxanga ndingqale ngqo kundoqo. So that's why I don't use my language sometimes. I just speak English to make it easy, because I'm not gonna.
phazamisanga uxolo ndilibele enye into bathi into le isiXhosa esivamileyo nesiXhosa esintsonkothileyo okanye esintsokothekileyo.
Yes. Chokwavokotheka, Chambers. It's true, my brother. No, it's true. And that's exactly what I tried to do. To share these depths, to share these depths of language. For example, when I woke up, when I woke up as a child, when I realized the truth of what our parents were trying to teach us, I started to look at some of the words that were used. Words like khamwa, khamwa, words like badi. When you look at these words, man, because of how these words are written, you don't understand that there's something deeper about these words. Khamwa, we just understood it as meaning a monster. We understood khamwa as simply meaning a monster. Kandi khamwa did not mean a monster. Kham means to roar. Wa is a root word that also means cat. You understand? It's a root word that also means cat. It's also related to words that are related to fighting, to being aggressive. That's why Basotho batlori dintwa in reference to fights and battles. Ukulwa, ukucwa in isihlonipho sesiZulu. So khamcwa is the ravenous, roaring one. Uyabona? It's in reference to a lion, actually. Ikhamcwa, imbube. It's a lion. So now, that's why now that I'm older, when you say khamcwa, I also see it as khamcwan in plural, meaning the descendants of lions, those who are likened to lions. So all the little cats in the bush, not little cats, all the cats, the wild cats, can be called lion khamcwa because they are ravenous, they are beastly, but also they are sort of like less than a lion. They are little compared to the lion. So there's something I read about a while ago in Kham, something I read about the lion people. Khamcwan, literally Khamcwan, and it took me back to the isiXhosa surname and name uKhamcwane. It literally took me back to that. It just was amazing to me to see the parallels. uKhamcwane usasekhona nangoku, uKhamcwane, the child of a monster, but not in a negative way. I don't know how to explain it, man. For us, beast is not a negative word. That's why we call the king Ingonyama, Imbube. It's a beast. You understand? It's something that's ravenous, something that's, that's strong. So Khamcwane literally means a child of a lion child, person of a lion. So I just wanted to maybe relate to that as well. But so that's the thing. In language, then we hide these secrets. In language, we hide these secrets. Now, that's why it's easy for people to fumble. When they try to decipher our history, they fumble because they don't even have access to our history, because they don't have access to our languages. 1 minute, they say our languages are West African. The next minute, they say our languages are East African. After that, they say our languages are Central African. The next day, they say our languages are West Asian. I kid you not, I've heard all of these things. All of these things, I've heard them. So they don't even know how to place us, because it's not even their place to place us. In the early 1900s, man, there was no such a thing as Bantu people, actually. It never existed. There was no grouping of people, no grouping of languages known as Bantu languages. So they had to put our languages somewhere. I've read where they put our languages as Bantu dialects. They call them Bantu dialects. Thank you, observer. Guys, Guys, you must help observer. You must assist observer. Yeah? You must assist observer, man. Observer is giving gifts here. Alone. How? Hey, one. I think I must dedicate a session to observer only. And non-wise. Just the two of them in the session. In the whole life. We are blocking the other ones. Hey, I've lost my train of thought now. That's why I must not look at the screen. Oh, I read a book where they trace our languages into this group of languages known as Bandu languages. Now, Ur is a city in ancient Mesopotamia. So what they're saying is that our language is Mesopotamian. I kid you not, like they will find a word and linked to a Mesopotamian word. And the person who's in charge of publishing this book is a white man from Wits, I think. They're saying our languages are Sumerian, they are West Asian, they are West African, they are Central African and East African. So which one is it? Which one is it exactly? Yeah, no. They did say Bantu. They have a group that was called Bantu. In the Zulu dictionary by Doak and Vilakazi, actually they reference Bantu a lot in many of the words. Bantu. Whereas in another book called Origin of the Bandu, they reference a group of languages known as Ugaritic languages. they reference a group of languages known as Ugaritic languages. Which means Northwest Semitic languages. They said our languages are Northwest Semitic, Ugaritic, Sumerian, but none of them even bother to listen to what we are saying. We are saying we came from the reeds. We are the people who came out of a hole and entered here. We appeared. Savela, imvelo, indalo. We are one with nature. They did not want to listen to that. You guys, you don't know about that. You guys are from West Asia. You guys are from West Africa. Now, the interesting thing is, all evidence suggests otherwise. All evidence suggests otherwise. You see, these are patterns of movements of people. Obviously, thousands of years ago, the planet didn't look the way it looks. Many places that were there are today under the sea. Even here in South Africa, many places that existed today, they are under the sea. You see, even in KZN, the coast where it is, it did not end there. The coast used to go be way further into the sea. So anyway, current knowledge tells us that if you look at the south, you can see the populations. You see exactly what they look like. They look like Nilotic peoples. If you go further north towards the areas with snow, you see a lot of intermixing with other hominin species. And that's why you get now the modern day groups of Chinese, modern day groups of Asians, modern day groups of Europeans. What this means is that these people are actually, they're not indigenous. They're actually not indigenous. They are a product of intermixing of different species. So how do they think they have the right to come and tell us who we are, when their very own ancestors are there living as third-class citizens in those countries? The ancestors of these people who come to study us, some have been wiped out completely by them. Wiped out completely. Pam. Papela. Oh, by the way, the word pam means to switch off something or to completely finish something. Pam. It's also the word that gives you the word impama by extension. I'll switch you off with impama. Pam. So all modern day knowledge that we have suggests that they are the ones who would have come from us, not us from them. In fact, there's a documentary that was done on National Geographic. I think they deleted it ever since. In this documentary, they found a person called Adam. Just tell me, who does this Adam person look like? I found this Adam to look very much like me, actually. This is Adam. They did some kind of 3D imaging. Yes, this is how he looks. I was like, oh, so I'm your guys' Adam, actually. I am your Adam. You must accept me as your first point of reference. Not the other way around. I'm your first point of reference. Mara, no, you guys are no, I'm your first point of reference. Dingu Adam wako kwedini. If you're from Europe, if you're from China, I'm Adam to you. No, seriously, kina Adam kukaga mo. Gaga. Kana baba. Kitira sek serata. They remove this thing. Huh? They remove it. I know this thing, it makes us look like we are new on this earth. But they keep on publishing these studies. The recent study shows that 3,000 years ago, there were no white-skinned people in Europe. 3,000 years ago. You know how recent 3,000 years ago is? It's like 1008 BC. There were no white-skinned people in Europe. So this Greek history that they claim so much, if there were no white-skinned people, how did those people look, Konje? We'll get into that some other day. You'd be shocked, actually. You'd be shocked, not by my information, by their own information. By their own information, you would be shocked. It also shocks me that some groups want to claim to be us when we already know who we are, Tina. My daughter. You see, recently we've had a group of deluded West Africans who go by the theories of Europeans who claim that we are not from here. Europeans who claim that we are not from here, and then they say that they are the original people here. And then now this group of deluded people with heads that look like mountains, they said now they are Abambbo. And then we asked them, what does Abambbo mean? But it's Agbagbo. Agbagbo, it means the hustlers. Hey, these uncouth criminals. Abambbo, Tina, we knew Guti. Abambbo was like people of Ebo or people of Imbo, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, miners. But if you look underneath Abambbo, there's a word there, highly prized, highly valued, or a prized possession. Abambbo, it's a highly prized possession, highly valued possession, like gold, like a metal. Now, when I was growing up, we were told, endoda, ungadludli nophoyana, imbo ayilahlwa ngophoyana. Don't throw away imbo because of uphoyana. That's what I was told. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Abambbo. In fact, Imbo, just above Abambbo, it says Natal. Imbo is Natal and the country beyond. And I already explained that Imbo is not just Natal. Any place where you find these ruins, these ancient ruins on the east part of the country, Kusembo nasebunguni. I mean, in Mpumalanga, guys, where you have stone ruins, they literally call it Bukoni. Don't you know Bukoni is Bunguni? Hey, yeah. And there's people there who are agreeing with these Agbagbo pretendians. They are being chased in Ghana because they are doing lies there. They are lying and doing wrong things. They are being chased in Saudi Arabia. They are being chased in the UAE. They are being chased in Vietnam. They are being chased by Trump in America, the golden Goliath, orange man, the orange orangutan. They are being chased by Trump. They are being chased everywhere because they are lying now. They are coming here to South Africa to say, oh no, we are actually Abambbo. You Swati people, you are not Abambbo. You Mkhize people, you are not Abambbo. You are thieves. You Zulus, you killed us. Aisha Mama Zulu Zeni, guys. What did Amazulu do to these people? What did Amazulu do? Because they always they find a way to come for Amazulu. And unfortunately now, because they're coming for Amazulu, now they must come for Amaxhosa as well, because you can't separate these two. You can't separate these two. Yeah, I heard there was a Southern African person there saying Amaswati are the first people, but Amaswati, they come from another group of people. Most Amaswati are not some group that exist by themselves. They literally found other people. Even there, Eswatini, there are people they call Bemzabu. Ebanfu Bemzabu. In fact, I have a friend, Oliswati, and his Nguni, his clan name, Ingunilanga Sentla. That's what they call him, and he's Swati. So what nonsense are they saying that there's no Ngunis there in Swazini? There are Swatis who were there long before the Emalangen. Well, Emalangen are actually from here. Yes, they were there as well, Mara. Most of them are from here. Anyway, I don't want to get into those things because they're just mindless. But it's just interesting to me that the only justification that these West Africans have in claiming South Africa as their homeland, the only justification they have is that AI told them so. What level of delusion do you have to be in to come to a public platform and tell people of that culture that, no, AI told me that your culture is mine and therefore it is? But I understand things like that because they fit into a bigger ecosystem of alienating people from what is theirs. It's a way to alienate us from what is ours. They started with saying it's Azania, our land is Azania. I showed them that there's no Azania here. Tinazia is Azania. It's a pity I don't know how to move this map around. Yo, these people bahlanya. That's the best way I can put it. Mara bahlanyela ukuthi they should hlanya there in West Africa there and do their, what is this thing they do? Juju. What do they call it, Konj? Ada obiekwe. South Africa is my home. Oh. Hey, my people. Anyway, I'm looking for something just to conclude my point here. Just to conclude my point. So they mentioned some points about cows as well. They mentioned some points about cows, that we don't have cows. Cows are not indigenous to South Africa. These people. Aye, man, guys. You know this kind of cow, ne? They call it Nguni cows. Tinage, we call it Inkomo. So I think it should be called Inkomo. These kind of cows are actually indigenous to Africa. These cows are indigenous to Africa. And there's evidence that these cows did mate with two other breeds. The horned cattle with no hump. They mated with this, the horned cattle with no hump, and the horned cattle with a hump. These two breeds, this one and this one, mated, but long ago, and we get your typical Nguni cow today. But there's another type of cow. It's called the Drakensberger cow. Besides the Nguni cow, it's a cow that is indigenous to the Drakensberg region. There's 3 indigenous cow breeds in South Africa. 3. So I don't understand why they were talking about that. There are no cows here. Asnankomo. Hey man, our culture is literally centered around cows. For you to even have a home, to be able to get married and have children, you need cows. How come you say, we don't know cows, they came with Asians? These bastards are liars. But Africans did not use spears. But the Igbo themselves, they've been using metal since 2000 BC. There's evidence that the Igbo people in West Africa have been smelting iron since 2000 BC. They were not in South Africa in 2000 BC. They were there in Enugu. I know it's not nice to be in Enugu because we can manage our hunger. Mara, you can't take our thing, Baba. You destroyed Enugu, so leave us alone. King Pungane the third. That one. I don't even know who made him king to begin with. I'm sorry, but I don't know who made him king. I don't know who made him king because he's lying, saying that Amashlubi come from Shubi people. They come from Shubi. They were saying Mamfene, Awatusi are actually from Watutsi. This is a problem, guys. You can't just take any word that sounds similar to another word and then say, no, because they sound similar, they are. No, guys, man. Things can sound similar and have nothing to do with each other. It doesn't mean just because they sound similar, therefore they are the same thing. Haibo. There's a character in Pokemon. The character's name is exactly my name. Thank you, Bawuncoche. Thank you, Msunu. Siyacamakusha Msunu. Ncoche. Khosi. Oh, by the way, I'm not swearing, guys. It's his clan name. So, where's like Embo? Where's like Hlubi? Where's like these are indigenous words. They have nothing to do with what they are linking them with. ukingibungane makayeke ukuthi abantu basuke Congo. The problem is that they don't even understand history. That's their biggest problem. They think the people you see today in South Africa are the same people that existed 5,000 years ago, or the polities, the cultural groupings that we have. AmaXhosa, AmaZulu, what. It's not the same. 5,000 years ago, we had completely different ways of life. Our languages have evolved so much. They're no longer the same now. So when you talk about something that happened 4,000 years ago, as if it applies to the modern day South Africans, then you are misleading people. That's it. You are literally misleading people. So that's why I said in that live of these Nigerians and these Caribbean people, I said these people are literally declaring war on South Africans. They are literally declaring war. Because their history will never have timelines. There are no timelines. There are no dates in their history. They will take something from 6,000 years ago and speak it as if it happened yesterday. And then you must go around claiming something from 6,000 years ago, now in 2025. You leave the one that happened 10 years ago. You leave the one that happened 200 years ago to claim something from 6,000 years ago. Aye, guys, man. Just a few minutes ago, I was reading about Amaxesibe. I think they're saying now Amaxesibe come from Kush. Kush gave birth to Nguni and to Mbo. So Mbo now is no longer precious stones. Mbo is a person. They saying Kush gave birth to Nguni and Mbo. They don't tell you when this happened and where. They're just saying it happened somewhere in Ethiopia. And then Kush gave birth to Nguni, and then Nguni gave birth to Ntu, and Ntu gave birth to all the people that we know. That's laziness. That's laziness. You are just lazy to go and find out the truth. And you are lazy to say, I do not know, guys. Tina, asna Kush, Tina. Asna Ham. There's no Ham, there's no Kush. That's why I blocked that fool who was busy talking about Hamite nonsense here. That Israelite fool. Yo! Hi, guys, man. Hi, man. Sometimes you feel like kumele nje uthathe isiqhushumbisi nje esi-atomic usifake ebantwini kuphela and cleanse our culture. We need cleansing. So now, since we are not Bantu, and I'm not Bantu, guys. No, I'm not Bantu. I am not Bantu. Straight. I don't know what Bantu is. My ancestors never told me about Bantu. My mother, my father haven't told me about Bantu. To this day, I've never heard them say, Sandile, you are Bantu, my child. No, they said, Sandile, ungumfene ndoda. Apha emafene nisenza kanje. Singabantu abehla emaweni. Singabantu basehlathini. That's what my forefathers told me. You are the people from the forest. Singabantu, yes. But we are not Bantus. What is Bantus now? And since we are not Bantus, as non-ways are saying, it's only the South African women who are Bantus now. So Tina, the males, we're not Bantus, eh? Yo! Guys. So I'm not Bantu, but my sister is Bantu. Although we are both from the same parents. The females in my family are all Bantu, and I'm not. You see? I think they just want to make it easy for them to be able to give birth to people who look like this. They want to make it easy to give birth to people who look like this. That's what they want. They don't give a damn about our sisters. They wouldn't be selling them if they did give a damn. They just want to give birth to people who look like this with a clear conscience. So it's very simple, guys. This thing is very simple. You are not going to be told by books who you are. You are not going to be told by people from the Caribbean. They don't even know who they are. You are not going to be told by this man on the screen who you are. The people who are going to tell you about who you are is your actual history. Since we are not Bantu, only the females are Bantu. I guess this is how South African children are going to look now for the next few years. Before you, the next president is going to look like this. I agree, they are coming back to reclaim their land. Are you ready? The next king of Amazulu is going to look like this, Baba. Now, Timbube. The next king of Amaxhosa will look like this. Abiyekwe, Okonkwo. Bayethe, wena ka Okonkwo. Yeah, madoda. Inhloko ingathi yenziwe ngama Anunnaki. The head is like the Anunnakis did some magic there. Bloody predator. No, my guys. So, when we talk about history, I think there's a unique opportunity. There's a unique opportunity in our own history to decipher some of the things we've accepted prematurely previously. Things about the history of ancient Egypt, for example. We've accepted that there's Ra, there's this, there's that, but only from an Egyptologist point of view. So now we have a unique opportunity now to accept a new way of looking at these things. Even things about the Anunnaki, the ancient Kemet, those are real histories. But there's a colonial perspective on these things and there's an indigenous perspective. For example, there's a name in Kwe dialects, Anu. Anu. Anu means clean. Anu means clean. Anu means clear. Anu means smooth. So when something has been cleaned, cleansed, and smoothened, we call it Anu or Anu. Now, when it's a person of a clear heart, of clean and cleansed nature, that person is called Anuqoib. Anuqoib. And as is tradition, when we codify Anuqoib, it's Anuqoib. Anuqoib. Do you understand? This is where you get your Anunnaki, the pure ones, the cleansed ones. But you're not going to understand the indigenous perspective on these things if you take the colonial perspectives. Moren.
I don't know if you have the picture of the so-called Anu.
I don't have that.
Let me see if I can find it quickly. But just keep that thought in mind, né?
Okay.
And our people, the Kwe. Ne?
Yes,
Just
yes,
keep that
yes.
in mind. Yeah, continue.
All right. So the idea of Anu, is not so different from the idea of the Ras and the Osiris. These are royal bloodlines, Kanyes. These are royal bloodlines. In fact, even the names, in essence, the names that I use to describe these people. An means above the sky, but it also means clear. Anuna or Anun, it means above or the sky. So when you say Anuna, you're saying the offspring of Anu, children of the clear or cleansed ones, children of the sky, or children of the blood, princes. Anunnaki means princes, princely bloodline, royal bloodline. That's literally what it means in its literal sense. So it's a pantheon, a series of people. It's a family tree, that thing. It's a family tree of a royal bloodline. So now people can debate about what the origin of this bloodline is, but there's no doubt that this is a bloodline of some sort. Now, some of the stories are not actually in reference to people. Some of the epics, the epic of Gilgamesh, the epic of this, the epic of that, some of them are not in reference to people. Some of them are in reference to cosmic bodies. Remember what I said when I spoke about Qwaye, Ngqayiqe, or Qwenqayiqe, the first there sitting ones. Remember what I said a few days ago when we were talking about who the first people are. I said, let's go back to our oral understanding. The Qwenqayiqe, the first there sitting. It says the first people today are nature. Literally, that's what it means. The gods are nature. Because if it says the first people today are the sky and the moon and the stars and the insects, what that means is that these things precede our existence. These were there before us. They were able to shapeshift. So there were beings that existed before us. And these beings, today we understand them as nature. That's why if you go to the oldest stories, even in some biblical stories, Baal is just a title that means master. Now you have Baal Zephon, Baal Zabab, Baal Dududu. Oh, that's why people call it Beelzebub. It's Baal Zabab, the Lord of the flying ones. Baal Zephon, the Lord of the east. Baal Dududu, the Lord of thunder. Dududu, it's thunder, Duduma. What does this mean? It literally in reference to thunder itself. These are the same things we talk about when we talk about Inkanyamba. When we talk about Impundulu. Impundulu is Baal Dududu. It's Thor. It's the thunder god, the thunder entity, which we literally personalize it or personify it as a bird. The Hammerkop, Uqimqoshe, Utekwane, which further on is also the so-called phoenix bird, because it rises from the ashes. Those same ashes of the phoenix, in our culture, we call them umgubo kaphezulu. Because when the thunder strikes, the scorched minerals, the scorched substances, the black powder, we take it. It's used to create concoctions. Umgubo means powder. Phezulu means the sky. Umgubo means powder, Phezulu means the sky. So umgubo kaPhezulu is the powder that comes from the sky entity through the striking of lightning, which is personified as the bird that we understand as Impundulu, the shape-shifting bird, the phoenix. So these things, we still have them. You just don't know. Our people do not know. We have them. I will let you speak, Brother Magara. Don't worry. I just don't want to lose my thought. So the same way we maintain these understandings of nature in the form of Unkanyamba, the one who controls the waters, Kamab. It's Kamab in Kwekwe Goab and Nama Goab. Kamab. Kanyamba. In fact, those who read ancient texts, they will know about things known as cherubim and seraphim. Seraphim literally means the fiery serpents. Seraph means fire. Seraphim is a plural form that means fiery serpents. Seraph means fire. So the seraphim, cherubim, those with many wings. A serpent. You talk about the behemoth and leviathan. Behemoth comes from the word chemo, or homo, in reference to an earthly beast, inkomo. This could be an eland. This could be a rhino. This could be a hippo. Behemoth, a gigantic earthly beast. Leviathan, from the word leva, to twist. Lewa or leha or luha, or to twist, the twisting creature. Everything that is there, we have it. You don't need to copy what you see from others. You just need to understand how it relates to what we already have. Because if we say we have the cradle of mankind, I repeat, if we say we have the cradle of mankind, then let's be the cradle of mankind. Let's not be copycats. Brother Makar.
No, mina Nkosami bengithi nje when you were speaking about the Anu people
Yes.
and the article says they are the first people in reference to what you have on
Yes.
your background as
Yes.
well. It's a astounding connection,
Yes, my brother.
and I don't know if people got it
I
because
hope they did.
because you're literally you've just literally said it because it's literally our people.
I hope they understand. Because the thing is, my brother, Aboriginal, indigenous cultures have common knowledge. You can even go to ancient American cultures, to the Aztecs, to the Mayans, or the different tribes of so-called Native Americans. You can go to the Aboriginal Australians. If you say you are understanding indigenous culture, don't read the books of Europeans. Go and understand these people that are said to be primitive, because they are the ones who have the unadulterated version of events. They will tell you about the ice age when the water was frozen 15,000 years ago. I said 15,000 bloody years ago. They will tell you about the ice age. They will tell you about gigantic creatures that existed on earth, which we call amazimzim. What do you think amazimzim are? I just can't show this picture properly. It's a picture full of giants. In the walls, in Zimbabwe. This picture is in Zimbabwe. It's not anywhere else. It's in Zimbabwe. So what our ancestors were saying is that imvelo, the ones that emerged first, today, we understand them as the stars. And here's the thing. There's something I can say about the stars someday. I don't think people are ready today. I'm going to say something about the stars someday. Nkosi Amzo Chambas. Someday I'll talk about the stars because we don't know. We do not know. We think we know, Mara, we do not know. No, I can't say today. I need to prepare myself. Because I need to say it properly so that you're not confused. But what I'm saying is that what you see above there is a map. That's all I'm going to say for now. When you look up there, that is a map. In fact, look up there at night, look at the moon, look at the star, and someday we'll talk about it. And we'll be able to see certain things and why we did certain things culturally to align with certain things. So when our ancestors say the celestial bodies are seen as either points that direct us to something, especially the stars. They are seen as directional points, whereas the moon and the sun are seen as portals. I mean, heck, at some point, the moon and the sun are even seen as an eye of some sort. But we'll talk about those things at some point, because these beliefs are so powerful that even some of the worst creatures on earth, even some of the worst creatures to exist, had cults. Yesterday I spoke about apartheid and how apartheid was literally based on a cult of Calvinism. And what do you think the Holocaust was based on? You think the Holocaust was just about economics? Yeah? You think the Holocaust was just about economics? Have you heard about the Black Sun? The Zwarte Sonne? Have you heard about the Black Sun? the Zwarte Sonne, the source of power through portals that people know. They go and extract power there to run this bloody world. In fact, even the Afrikaner Broederbond comes from an earlier secret society called Young South Africa. Where do you think these people got their own knowledge? The same people who ran here. Don't you think they were connected to other international systems? All these things, these crazy superpowers that were running the world, destroying native and indigenous life, they had some kind of knowledge that they took somewhere. And today, it's understood as being occultic knowledge because it's hidden. You can come up, Gigi. I will accept you. They come to Africa for their rituals because we are the ones. We are the ones with untapped pure portals. We also are the most numerous group in the world. Hey, this observer person, who's observer? Hey guys, who's observer? Is observer, does observer work for some institution? I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. Observer is a pillar. Observer is a pillar of life. A beam of light, Baba. W observer. Thank you. So these secret societies are not local either. People think the Afrikaner Broederbond was just a South African thing. No! It's a spider's web with tentacles stretching from Nazi Germany to the USA today, to the Soviet Union. Today, even as far as China, the same people who are here in South Africa, who built underground roads, tunnels. If you've been to the UJ, you would know UJ literally has tunnels. Where do you think those tunnels connect to? The same people who built underground roads in South Africa are the same people who were in Southwest Africa when the Germans, they're the same people who were in Rhodesia. They're the same people who are in China, who are moving to China today. It's the exact same people who were running Soviet Union. Go and learn about how the Soviet Union collapsed. It's the same people who are running Nazi Germany. It's the same people who are running Hollywood today. And they understand the power of the things we do. They understand the power of indigenous proceedings. That's why they go to Latin America to take on ayahuasca. That's how they go to Latin America. They take 3 weeks vacation, go to Latin America to reconnect. They take advantage, use it to elevate whatever agendas they have. So when our ancestors talk about the first people, and today the first people being manifested as celestial bodies and cosmic bodies, our ancestors know exactly what they're talking about. Go to these stories of the Anunnaki and the gods of the Ogdoad and the god of the Ennead. The gods of the Ogdoad, gods of the Ennead, all of them, look at their true characteristics. It's literally nature. Whether we talk about Nun, the water, Kamab, whether we talk about Geb, the solid earth, Geb, whether we talk about Net, the night sky, Unyez, Unyet, whether we talk about Ra, the rays of the sun, Hora Litsatsi, Ukota Ilanga, Ulita ilanga, Ra, Ota. Remember, few months ago, I was explaining the R to T transition in our indigenous languages. When people were saying we don't have R, we do have R, but in some languages R becomes T. When Basotho say lirato, Tina City, Lutando, or lirazo in Siphuti. When Basotho say uruma, runa ritsi, ukutuma. When Batsonga say what is this thing? Kurula. Thank you, Blue Moon. We say kutula. So when they say ora litsatsi, we say ukota ilanga. When you tell me about Ra, I will tell you about Ta, because Ra is the rays. Ilita are the rays. Ilita lilanga. When the sun comes, we say lite ta tita ilanga. You say Ra, I say Tata. So when we talk about Ra, understand we're talking about umtha welanga, itha lelanga, ukuthi tha kwelanga, ukuthi gqa kwegqange lelanga. When we say gqang, we're talking about ukuthi gqa kwelanga, the shining of the light and the emission of the rays. Nondwayis, Tamako. Thank you. When we talk about kang for the moon, we talk about inyanga, which literally means bright light, aka nyeti, aka unyezi, aka the night sky, net. Gigi, welcome. Hey, Gigi is out. I was about to give Gigi a chance to talk. So all these entities, even you go to ancient Kemet, just like the Anunnaki, when you look at these royal bloodlines, if you go as far back as you can, a lot of them now, they're sort of like manifested as natural elements. Gigi, talk to us. Where's Gigi? Hey, I don't know what it is. Let me continue. So the name Lita is actually Ra. Literally, it's Ra. When you say Amun, you're saying invisible. Unwa. Yay. Siphina apha. When you say Amun, you say Agabonwa. Amunwa. Invisible, not seen. The invisible one. When you say Ra, you say the sun rays. Ili talelanga. So do you now understand how the ancient beings that are recorded as gods or these ancient secret bloodlines, a lot is exactly the story that we were being told about the first there sitting ones, whom we see today as what? As nature. Gigi, talk to us. You've been trying to come up.
Greetings. Yeah, you touched some very interesting stuff I wanted to ask about, and yes, I fully agree with you in everything you said. That unfortunately, we as Black people or African or Bantu people, such to say, are following those which is copycats without realizing where we are actually the source of it all. Yeah,
Exactly.
but yeah, our blindness has made us dumb to the what can we say, to the facts that is right in front of us most of the time. But when you say something, I will ask. Continue on for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So it becomes now imperative, ne? It becomes imperative to understand. You don't just go to Wikipedia and take those things and then you start changing the name of your children. Amun-Ra, blah, blah, blah. No, look at it from a indigenous lens. And I still promote going to these indigenous cultures. If you feel like you are lacking references, go to these indigenous cultures, ne? Whether it's indigenous Indian cultures or South Asian cultures, whether it's indigenous native Latin American, I promote going to actually corroborate some of the things we were told. Go to indigenous cultures, go to the old stories of the Kham, the old stories of the Kung people, the old stories of the Ngu peoples, of the Kwekwe or Kwekwena, of the Namakwa peoples. Go to the old stories. When you go to those old stories, you will find very clear stories. These people, they don't say maybe, they tell you exactly what they understand as being the origin of things. And when you go back now to learn about whatever the Egyptologists wrote about, when you go back to learn, you will realize that no, man, our ancestors actually got it right because it's the unadulterated version. I see you raised your hand.
Indeed. I came to think about what you said before, that the new races is actually using knowledge that is based from somewhere, and often it's from the black people understanding of stuff. And what can irritate me the most is like that they are using a limited amount of what they understand of it,
Yes.
while we as black people going around and believing all this nonsense biblical stuff, when we can use it in full effect and even beyond. And I'm like, what are we doing, to be honest? You understand? They are using our stuff against us to empower themselves, and we just sitting around waiting for this Jesus Christ to come and save us.
So you see now, I like how Uzile says the effectiveness of today's system 100% depends on our ignorance. I agree completely. For this system to continue with the oppression of the people, the people need to be delusional. The people need to be in a state of a loop of delusion and confusion. How do you then strip away the delusion that this system brings about? How do you remove the disequilibrium, the illness? You detach from the system. You seek the original. You seek the indigenous. You seek the aboriginal view on things. And then you come back. It's going to be like you are wearing an X-ray pair of spectacles, because you see things for what they are, not for what they are purported to be. You will see beyond the iron curtain. You will see beyond the iron curtain, and you will see the hidden hand. So all the noise that you see, people claiming A, B, and C, is because they do not know yet that the source is one. There is one source, and that one source is within us. You just have to awaken. It's already recorded in your DNA. They call it the deoxyribonucleic acid. I don't know if you've ever heard of APEP, the gigantic snake that twirls and coils. I don't know if you've seen the drawing of the DNA double hexagonal shape as it twirls and coils, like the snake, the bronze snake in Yoga Yobedu. But they tell you it's APEP, and I tell you it's ipimpi. Because in our indigenous languages, when you say ipimp, you are referring to a kind of snake, but not just a snake, because for us, snakes and fish are the same thing. We class them the same altogether. Snakes and fish, we class them the same. These are reptiloid entities. So you look at DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You look at the structure, it represents a reptiloid kind of structure that twirls and coils, represented by the snake, which is usually used to represent health and wellness. A snake that twirls around a pillar or a cross. That's why they always say red cross. There should be a snake around it. This is the exact same thing in which you see the what? You see a pep ipimpi. And you see what? A spear. Umkhonto. So these things, unfortunately, because you've been detached from what is yours, you think they come from external sources. But these things come from within already. You already have this information stored in your subconscious knowledge. All you need to do is to awaken it. I had an experience some years back. 3 men, they were done with me. They took me out of the bush. I'm going to say it in English. I'm not going to go into details. As they took me out of the bush, they were pointing me to a journey ahead. I could see the color of the soil is red. As if I'm in somewhere in Botswana, around Botswana area, if not Botswana, Northwest. I know I'm not in the east of the country, based on the topography of the area. These 3 men are wearing is shuba, those loincloths, and they are carrying bows and quivers. They're carrying bows and quivers. They're very short, and they were done telling me whatever they were showing me. Now they're telling me you can go now. I understood what that meant, because that meant now what is in me is awakening. Sandile is awakening. So this knowledge is not knowledge that I can teach you. I can just remind you of it. I'm not teaching these things. I'm just reminding of these things. You, the one who sees it. You are the one who perceives it. So when we talk about the fire at the center, do you not know that the fire at the center acts as a portal? When we talk about the dance around the fire, anti-clockwise, as do solar bodies in the sky, do you not understand what it is meant to do? It is meant to get you to a state of higher vibration. You get out of this baby-like state of mind, childlike state of mind. You move from it now. You elevate to a higher state of consciousness. When you elevate to a state of you exit your body. You appear in another form. You are twasa. They don't know what Uktwasa means. They think Uktwasa means to go for training. Uktwasa means to appear, ukvela, to begin. So when you exit, as you move around this portal of the sun, symbolized by fire, as you exit, you go up or down. You go down through the hole, you go up through the hole. So the hole, the aperture, symbolizes a doorway into a higher consciousness. It symbolizes a doorway into a higher form of existence. Move out of a state of hypnosis. Move out of this state of hypnosis that you are in. You are hypnotized through broadcasting. You are hypnotized through television. You are hypnotized through entertainment and sports. And there's nothing wrong with entertaining yourself. I repeat again, there's nothing wrong with that. Kamagu, my people. Amzo. Kamagu siyaphumelela. Kamagu observer. Thank you for the gift. So when you exit a state of hypnosis now, you start to actually smell the crap that's out, that's been smelling for quite a long time. When you smell the crap now, you feel like you're going crazy because nobody else around you can smell it. Some can even label you as you've lost it. I was talking about Ngele just a few days ago, Makanda. On Mandela Day, I spoke about Makanda. The man who speaks in the beginning of that live, which I've now posted on YouTube, he says, they said Ngele has lost it. But Ngele hadn't lost it. They are the ones who lost it after Ngele tried to awaken them. Ngele said, let's go and fight for what is ours. After genocide was committed in the entire Eastern Cape through the orders of Lord Graham, after whom Grahamstown was named. But they said, Ngele, you are crazy. Because they could not perceive. For them to believe what Ngele was saying, it had to be written in a newspaper published by a European. So they were in a state of childlikeness, in a state of suggestibility. And this is what, if you go to a hypnotist, if you go to a hypnotic therapist to this day, they cannot hypnotize you unless you give in to their hypnosis. Hypnosis doesn't work unless you allow it. I remember when I was still a student, we were learning software programming. We had an in-house hypnotic therapist. An in-house hypnotic therapist. First thing that woman said was, can you see that the walls are shaking? Can you see that the walls are shaking? They are vibrating. But little did she know, I saw her 3 days before I met her. I already knew her. I kid you not. I saw her 3 days before I saw her. I perceived her 3 days. And I saw her coming. I saw her putting me in a cage. By the time I meet her physically, I'm like, this is the woman I saw. But guess what? I was 3 steps ahead. She could not hypnotize me. She couldn't. That woman could not hypnotize me. She was like, can you see the walls are shaking? I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, the walls are shaking. And then she kept on mumbling and mumbling and mumbling. And look, the people who did hypnosis, felt like they needed it is none of my business. I didn't need it. I have my own ways of doing things. So for you to be hypnotized, I was in a room with her, very creepy looking woman. For you to be hypnotized, you have to allow her to occupy a space of trust in your brain. In your mind, she needs to occupy a place of trust. So your brain needs to filter her into a place of safety. And when you've made her safe, I'll allow you, Amzo. When you've made her safe for your brain, then she's able to get your mind into a much lower vibration on the brain waves. We call that a state of suggestibility. Do you know how children are? Children, they follow whatever you're doing. Babies are highly suggestible. You can tell a baby to throw herself down the wall. They will throw themselves because they're in a childlike state. And this is exactly how people are with politics and religion. They are in a state of suggestibility. Anything that this person says cannot be questioned. This is exactly the dangerous place that people are in now with historians and these creators, content creators. They are in a state of suggestibility, in a state of inability to question and disagree. So the key is to go and find the truth of your own people. Even here in South Africa, I want the people in KZN, I want the people in Mpumalanga, the people who call themselves Abaselangeni, go and find out what it means to be Owaselangeni. Go and find out what it means to be Owaselangeni. What is Elangeni? And why we keep cattle, and why our houses look in the east, why our houses face the east, why our kraals, when we open the door of the main house, we see the kraal and we see the sun rise. Umso obomvu. And then when you understand that, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Portals. Because today I'm talking about portals to access and to exit and enter. High emotions can put you in a state of suggestibility. High emotions can put you in an alternative state of mind. So state of suggestibility is one of the states of mind. You're not asleep. You're not awake either. You are somewhere in between. You are in limbo. You are physically awake, but you are in limbo. That's why when your pastor says A, you have to say A as well. When your pastor says B, you have to say B. When your political leader says A, you have to say A. When your political leader says B, you have to say B. Thank you, guys. Amzo, talk to my people.
Bullies. Mnandi, oh shit, I need to speak English kanene to accommodate. Now I want to dwell mostly on the aspects of what do you call them, Gonji kanene? What was that word? Dilibele what? On how the delusion and the undeniable, like in the denial ngayo, and the way they stole lots of things and then they took other things and kept them for themselves. So I want to start here. Let's start with the rituals. And most of the Christians will say rituals, praising ancestors and whatnot. So if you know the origins of the Bible and where they studied, there's a thing, there's Tempen. That's where the high priest and the priests, sons of Aaron, known as the Kohaim,
Yes.
there, when they went there, they performed rituals. They did not teach doctrine or praise. They went and they did rituals. In the Bible, people went with sheep, goats, cows, and children to the priest to perform offering rituals. When
Yes.
So that's number one. Leyo, like they must eradicate Londo Leyo, Abambbo abamnyama indoba rituals are evil and whatnot, and Jesus is the one true what. Ayikho Londo Leyo. There's no such. And secondly, the misinterpretation of heaven as going to heaven. That actually came from a poem from a Italian poet, Dala, kwakuthiwa nguDante. So in the poem was called Inferno. So Dante in the poem, he speaks about, this was in the 1300s, by the way, I think 1311. So in the poem, he describes the journey of a man. Like when a man goes within himself, he goes into a state called purgatory. Ne? So in this state, ne, he goes through self-introspection, depression, anxiety, yonke londo. After that, ne, and then after his guilt is too much, and then he goes into inferno, which is where everything he did is going to burn away into the fire, hence the fire of transformation. The fire that gets rid of all negativity and whatnot. Ne? So through Inferno, then after experiencing Inferno, going through Inferno, he goes into a state called Paradisio, which is paradise. Zonke zonto ezo, ne? So the Pope at that time loved the poem so much, he incorporated it into the Christian doctrine and the Catholic Church. Secondly, masiye the 25th of December, ne? Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. That date was just taken from pagan solstice festivals and such, like Saturnalia and Yule. So what they did, Christians, they took everything of that ceremony, which is the Christmas tree, the feast, the symbols, the things that hang on the tree, the jingle bells. What they did not change, ne? They just changed the name. Secondly, singene baptism, ne? Baptism is taken from the African ritual, water rituals, rebirth and cleansing. Why do you think abantu bamanzi in our culture? We have water people. We have forest people, but water in our culture symbolizes cleansing. Hence why, whether it is dirty or it is clean, it symbolizes rebirth or cleansing or that contaminated the water. Yeah? And then, you can't really promote Indo Edibense that used to justify slavery, war, and control, and weaponized, and to enslave people. So really, we can't be dwelling on that. So, Bona, they must just understand that most of the things that are indoctrinated into the Christian or the Western ideal is actually taken from African culture. Yonke lando is taken from African culture. Baptism, the smoke, the Roman Catholic Church. I remember I think I was still in primary. I went for holidays to my uncle in Pietermaritzburg. On the 24th of December, there was a Roman Catholic church in the area where we were supposedly supposed to go as Abandwana. So, it was my cousins. My uncle was married a Zulu woman from Pietermaritzburg. So my cousins there, they told me, but if we go to that church, we're going to receive free meat and free what. So when we went there, when the ceremony started, they used to, I don't know what you call that thing that emits smoke that is carried by Umtu, and then behind them is, I don't know, is the pastor or the priest or the minister. I don't know how to categorize that. So they say that is used to cleanse. But in African culture, we have smoke to cleanse the air, the energy around. So most of the things that some of them are considered evil, some of them are considered ungodly or what, they all are taken from African culture, essentially, when I put them. So benifuna nje ugxila kuloo nto le. Also the power of the tongue actually.
Yes.
I also wanted to dwell on that. Andithi xa senza isiko kuthiwa isiko lilizwi as opposed to isithethe. Andithi xana sisenza isiko ne, asikwazi, we can't just senza isiko sixhele inkomo. We have to speak. Sithi no, apha sixhelela I don't know ukhokho inkomo okanye inkabi yompha. Without those words, then akho siko apho bhutwan, because isiko lilizwi, because ilizwi liphuma phi emlonyeni, kuthiwa umlomo uyadala. So there are certain words that summon spirits, certain names that summon that activate protection, that activate izinto ezininzi. Uyabo. So ndizawumapho.
Amaku Jambas, hi. Diabulela Jambas. Thank you, man. You know, one thing you mentioned, a lot of the things you mentioned, I'm not going to go too deep, but you mentioned about animal sacrifice. I just wanted to say, even in scripture, you know, in the Bible, there's a part that talks about a goat for the Lord and the wilderness. This goat is gonna basically carry all the sins and all the bad things, and this goat is gonna be let loose in the wilderness, carrying all these sins. So this goat is just gonna be moving around in the wilderness. Now, as someone someone who grew up in izinto zesintu, traditional medicine, there's something I know called ukulahlisa. So ukulahlisa is done if someone is being troubled by certain bad things, and they need to sort of like cleanse fully. The most powerful way that they can cleanse is to take. What's gonna happen is you're gonna take that person's senses or things that symbolize that person's senses and scent. So you're gonna take the dirt in the ears, in the mouth, in the tongue, in the nose. You can get a bit of blood from another person. This is how the healers or the shamans will do it. They will take some hair from the person. They'll take inansika isiziba, like indwangu, a piece of cloth that is dirty and has this person's smell. Anyway, they will take all these things. They'll find a way to attach them to this animal. This animal is going to be let loose. It carries the bad things that were supposed to happen to that person. That is literally the goat of Azazel, as per the Bible as well. We understand. In fact, to this day, the people who practice Judaism still do it with chickens. They still carry chickens to what? To atone. Ukuhlamba, ukulahlisa, balahlisa ngenkukhu. So I just wanted to speak to that. But also ukuhlahluba, ukuhlola, to consult. And please, guys, don't take my words as me saying you guys must go and do these things. Ne? We are dealing with here facts. We're not dealing with go and hlahluba, go and hlola, go and take a goat. All I'm saying, if you want to do something, talk to your people, talk to your elders. We are not your elders here, so we're not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. We're just sharing facts. So, there's a king who was called Saul or Saul, Sahul. This king, his prophet was Samuel, his seer. So now he had done some things and he was going to die. Or Samuel died, left him, and things was going down. So what this king did, he went to a shaman or a diviner, basically. The diviner invoked the spirit of Samuel. Now, this spirit that has been invoked is known as umnyanya. It's a shade in English. It's umnyanya. This is exactly why we talk about amakhosi. The word amakhosi means kings. So there were people with the ability to invoke those who have passed. That's why a royal family always had a priest or a prophet amongst them, which we know as inyanga or itola or igogo or igqirha. These people did the exact same thing for the royal house to ensure that the graves of the royal house are protected so that no one can go to the royal grave and take a piece of soil. Because if you take soil from there, then you could literally just ungawukhafula uphehlelele umzi uphele. You could literally manipulate the entire royal family. Sometimes we see things happening in these royal families. We think they hate each other, they are fighting Kandi. There are people who are already working, dealing with the royal family. Yeah, but there are already people working, dealing with their royal families. So that also is a belief that used to happen. And many others. I mean, we could even have a life dedicated to this all alone. But yeah, it's true, my man. So the key here is that if you stay in a state of being like a child in your mind, you need suggestions on what to do and what not to do. You will always be oppressed mentally. And being oppressed mentally is being oppressed spiritually. And you mentioned something about Christmas, and you know, there's a difference between popularity and truth, or let me not say truth in a sense. Let me say complete knowledge. You see, there are things that are popular, and then there are things that are just there, facts. In recent years, and it's not a bad thing, a very good thing. There's been a very popular thing about September being the beginning of the year, and that's true. September is the beginning of the year. But what year? You understand? Beginning of what year? Beginning of the planting season. That's what September is. Now, there are 4 beginnings in a year, just like there are 4 cardinal points on land. Sinembombo zine emhlabeni, umntla nomzantsi, impuma nentshona, or inyakatho neningizimu, impuma nentshona. The year also has its own 4 points. Yabo. These 4 points are found in 4 times of the year. When the sun overcomes, when the sun starts to diminish, when the moon overcomes, when the moon starts to diminish. Those are 4 points. The sun overcomes, the sun starts to diminish. The moon overcomes, the moon starts to diminish. What are these 4 points? The first one, we pass it in June. We call it the winter solstice. It's Limela. AmaXhosa celebrate their new year in June. Some of the Khoi celebrate their new year in June, not in September. So it's very important to understand why. Because in June, it's a time of death. In fact, winter reaches its peak in June. In 1 week in June, between the 21st to the 24th, any day between those days, winter reaches its peak, which means the season of death has reached its strongest point. After that day, winter weakens. It weakens. So ancient cultures would say the god of death, after the winter solstice, the god of death sort of like starts to weaken now, or the god of the night sky. That's how ancient cultures would put it. But what it means is that the length of the night is the longest on the day of the winter solstice. After the day of the winter solstice, the night is still longer than the day, but the night is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Right now, the night is getting shorter. It's going to continue getting shorter until the spring equinox. On spring equinox, what happens? That's why it's called Inzalo Yilanga. Because on spring equinox, the sun and the moon are on equal. Basically, the day and the night are almost equal length. But shortly after that, the day will start to have a longer length, which means ilanga lizelwe on spring equinox, not in December, on spring equinox. Liyazalwa, liyakhula. Then that's the September. That's another point of the beginning. Beginning of what? Planting time. Kuyalinywa. So that's why they say hlakula or inhlangula. Because kuyahlakulwa now between July and August. Kuyahlakulwa. We're plowing the fields. Kuyakhubulwa, khubula umhlaba. Now, this is why people talk about Nkubulwane and all that. Now, after September, going into December, we are approaching a longer and longer length of day. By December now, between 21 to 24, this is what they celebrate as Christmas. You understand? The length of the day is the longest in the entire year, which means we have the sun is in its southernmost point, 23.5 degrees below the equator, right above the Tropic of Capricorn, around Limpopo. The rays of the sun, the Ra, is directly hitting the ground there, emitting its ultraviolet rays. This is the summer solstice now. The Ilanga alizalwa on this day. Ilanga is maturing on this day. From this day, Ilanga will get weaker. The day will start to diminish. It's still longer than the night in January, February, March, but it's starting to diminish. What happens in March? Ukwindla. In March, we have the autumn now, another equinox, where the length of the day and the length of what? Of the night start to be equal again. And again, the day of the night starts to increase. So what you are seeing here is a cycle of purgatory and paradise, purgatory and paradise, purgatory. So some of these things that we personify today, I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is we can understand them even in our own cosmologies because we always understood these things. That's why we have now beginning of the year in June, Islimela, Amaxhosa, and Kwe. We have beginning of the year in September. Umandulo, we have beginning of the year in December. Some nations do umkhosi womhlanga around December. Some do umhlanga around September. And then we have Ukwindla around March. Ukwindla around March, the first fruit ceremony. The first fruit ceremony. Ukushwama. You understand? Ukwindla, ulibo. This is where now, so now, that's the basis of our calendar. Those 4 points are the basis of our calendar. Those 4 points I mentioned. So people think the year begins in 1 point. There are different 4 points. These 4 points are the 4 quarters of the year. 4 quarters of the year. And this is how now people in power, people in positions of influence, those people, they're not there because they're dumb or whatever, or they're lucky. A lot of them gather this knowledge, they have this knowledge, and they align. So what you want to do, even what you eat, needs to align with the cosmic energy around you. You know what the best time is for Amasi, if you are in the east of the country. Vegetables, and you can eat them all the time, no? But the best time, the most optimal time to eat things like maize, to eat things like pumpkin, to eat things like amabele, the best time to eat maize, pumpkin, amabele is between February to May. That's why we have months called umabasa or umbasa, because kubaswa umlilo, kuthathwa umlilo, kugcadwa or kucananabwa amazimba. We take the fires that we basa, we fry the corn, we fry the maize. So there's 4 points critical to understand this thing. Very important. Wherever you are, you must always know 4 points. Now, I see my battery is very low, unfortunately, and I also have other things to do. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to allow Nkanyezi to say something, but I'm going to stop it here. I know sometimes it feels like let's go on and on, but that's not how you do it. You don't want to choke on this thing. You want to allow yourself to process it. I'm going to hold it here. We'll continue again. If tomorrow I'm able, I'll come in and we'll continue. Kanyezi, host.
Kamako.
Kamako kunjani?
Before I even make the points I wanted to make, when you talk about the height of the sun on the Tropic of Capricorn, which is around 21st of December, if we are Kumbula, 2007, the ANC conference was in Polokwane, right on the Tropic of of Capricorn. That was the sign of the end of the ANC. It started there. They've never held a conference there, if you have paid attention, because that's when the end started. I don't think they knew Wuti by taking it there on the Tropic of Capricorn. And it was on those days, around 20th December,
Yes.
somewhere there. That symbolized the end of the beginning of the end of the ANC. But anyway, ipoint ebendifuna uyenza mna Mhlekazi on on the issue of the portals.
Yes.
There is a movie before this kwinto yetasi okanye ngesizulu sithi sikhwama.
Yes.
There is a movie I would suggest anyone who's got who's got the light or enlightened to watch the Book of Eli
Yeah, I've watched
with
it.
Denzel Washington, which is actually it's a ritualistic movie about the harem abif ritual in the Masonic Lodge. Lonto iza kulento yokuthi umuntu omnyama is the actual secret, or he is the, when the Masons talk about the grand architect of the universe, they actually talking about the first person. So in that ritual, Harim Abif is hit in the head by 3 ruffians or 3 of his brothers, and they bury him on the northwesterly coast, and they dig a 6-foot grave, and they call it a shallow grave, and they bury him there. They say he can only be raised with a lion's claw. So that movie shows you that, because Denzel Washington is this blind guy who comes from the jungle, who rises out of the jungle. He's carrying a compass, and he's got a bag and a dagger on his back. The compass in masonry, it's when they talk about the masons' tools, it's a compass and a square. Those are the two things masons carry, but not literally. In other words, when the royal crown was appointing generals or Graham Abbott for them to come here, they were raised as masons first, so that they understood why they were coming here ritualistically to come and kill Hiram Abif. So in that particular movie, Denzel, what he is doing, he's traveling to the west. He's from the east. So Masons are not Freemasons, they are travelers, and they are traveling on the westerly coast. That's why we called the modern way of living westernization, because we are on a westerly coast of consciousness, which is ngokwemimoya xa sithetha ngamagumbi amane omhlaba, entshona kulapho imimoya emdaka ihlala khona. So that's where we are. But coming back to the issue yetasi nesikhwama, or lento kuthiwa isikhwama ngesizulu. So in his traveling, Eli, he is blind, but he's not aware of the power that he carries. But target yakhe is go to the library that is across the bridge. So at the end of the movie, when he gets to the library, he seems to be carrying a bag with a book that the whole world wants. But when he gets to that library, when he reaches his destination, he finds out that actually the book on his backpack is not the secret. He is the secret. The secret is it's in his mind. So ndizama uthini ngaloo nto wena Mhlekazi, just ukukunceda nawe ngexesha. Umuntu omnyama uyi-secret himself or herself. Okay? And kukho umuntu ondithumela i-message apha. And i-secret is his mind, ingqondo yakhe. So uba ngesintu sithetha uba sithi uSandile unetasi yakokwabo. Itasi lesingayenza ngofelelengwe olia is just a symbol. So now uba umzekelo ungumuntu wetasi yamakhosi wamanzi, there is specific elements okanye imithi ofuneka uyazile. Siza reveala nje i-secret encinci. Umyezane, umhlanga uningizimu, okay, and then kukho enye kuthiwa ligqabi lamanzi. Igqabi lamanzi ngusangokhulu, awukwazi ukwenza isilawu kanye igobongo lomndawo ungalifakanga pha. At the same time, usangokhulu walapha iningizimu ngumthi musi wathunya. That particular waterfall okuthiwa i-Victoria Fall, that's the biggest portal ukuza kule subject yakho. but it at the same time njengoba ndithi bapha emanzini uba ngumuntu olixhwele okanye ngumuntu wamayeza uyalazi eligaba okuthiwa ngusangokhulu lelona elikwazi uphamisa amakhosi wamanzi kakhulu. Ndizawucela umapho ke mhlekazi ukuseva ilantic. We'll probably have the conversation next time. Enkosi.
Khosi. Ukuphakamisa. I like when you use the word ukuphakamisa because it's in reference to invocation. It's in reference to invocation. It's what I was talking about. Someday I'll talk about something when I'm comfortable that I experienced. I was still a teenager. There was a gentleman who I was helping. I was his student. I was learning about the traditional ways, you know. But this gentleman had ulterior motives that I was unaware of. So he goes to Mozambique or either Mhlabi, I think Mhlabi Lingana. That's how I saw it. To do some stuff, you know, without my knowledge. But unfortunately, he failed. And today he's no more. Anyway, so there are ways that people are able to invoke certain things using herbs, because it's a herb. There are many other herbs that are used, like umdlebe, the wailing tree, the blood tree. Most umdlebe, when you look at it, it's like it's crying blood, that tree. There are even other versions of the tree that you actually need to come with something that walks on 4 feet for you to even survive. But more than anything, from what you are saying, I want to touch on one more thing. There's something known as izisukulo or ukusukula. Sukula. Sukula means to sharpen something like a knife. Yeah, umdlebe is the dragon tree. Hey, that's some powerful stuff right there. Ukusukula is to sharpen a knife or an instrument like a sword. When sharpening it, you are sukula. Now, you mentioned something about lion's paws. What we used to do when we still had our land, we used things called izisukulo, zekaya. Each family had something called isisukulo, which means a sharpening article. How do you make isisukulo? Isisukulo, it's a charm. It's a charm that is prepared in order to procure certain outcomes, whether to increase cattle, whether to obtain abundant crop. We have isisukulo senkomo, used to obtain abundant cattle. Isisukulo samazimba, you take the skin of an eland, impofu or khan, the wild cow. You take the skin of an eland, you piece it up into small pieces. You mix it with your seeds where you store them. You mix the skin of an eland with your seeds. When you plant, you will see wonders. This is why women were told not to go near such fields. It's not because they will do something to the field, it's because the field will do something to them. Why? Because women are an open portal. Anyone who doesn't know this is acting up. Women will catch things faster than men, both physically and metaphysically. It's scientifically proven. Women catch things faster. A woman is water. Umfazi ngamanzi. In fact, the name Ma for women, some say Mai, is literally the same name for water, Mai. If you go to Izihlonipo, the name for water kuzihlonipo zesiXhosa, Maila. The name for water kuzihlonipo zesiZulu, Maiwa. Our mother, hey, amanzi, because we come from the water. The solid earth is only the solid earth because it comes out of the water. In Lingala as well. Remember, I said 15,000 years ago, it was the ice age. The earth was more vast. Physical matter was more vast because the water had retreated from its edges. Maila, Maiwa. That's a woman, symbol of water. Now, water is a good conductor of the flow of electrons. Electrons move very fast in water. Hence, it's a good conductor of electricity. What this means, women, because symbolize water and flow. They symbolize water and flow and earth as well. We are the seed. We plant the seed. We carry it and plant it. But the seed only comes out if it lands on the soil and it's nurtured. So, women, then we say, don't come close to a field that has been doctored, because already you are catching, by walking on this ground, you are catching. That's why in our traditional ways, when a woman has just gotten married, for quite some time, until her water breaks, she's not allowed to walk on the likhutla, on the isigcawu, on the nkundla. Woman cannot walk there until her water breaks. You think it's by mistake? You think it's by mistake that we give women an assistant known as impelesi? You think it's a mistake that we give women impelesi, a young child, to guide them on where to walk and where not to walk in the family house until they have that firstborn? Because then after the firstborn, the portal has been opened, the water has been broken. She can step on certain places in the family. So izisukulo zekaya, these secret charms of the family, are dangerous to her because she comes through. She comes through umlobo. That's the water that's inside the woman's body. Absolutely. That's the water that's inside the woman's body. We come from the water, Runa. We, as humans, we come from water. We were inside water for 9 months full. Gosh. We were literally inside water in that woman's womb. So, izisukulo then, when you talk about the paw of a lion, Kanyis, you're reminding me, because one of the most powerful izisukulo involves burying the paw of a leopard or the bones of a leopard into the field. But these things are too strong. But when a woman has given birth now, the water has broken and the umbilical cord has been buried into the ground. Do you understand that this woman now is literally, officially allowed to step on these doctored places of the family? I will go into that some other day, marriage and the metaphysical part of it, and why certain things are done. Why traditionally, when a woman is coming to the marriage house, she needs to be accompanied by some cattle. It's not just cattle from the men's home as lobola. There's cattle that come from the women's home, 1 or 2 or even 3, because the health of her children will depend on those cattle. The health of her children will depend on those cattle. When they don't get well, we go and take some hair, some fur from the cow. We say, put around your neck, put around your wrist. This is your claim to this family. This is your title deed that you have a right to claim the things of this family. Why do you think we take the children to the kraal in the first place? Because the children is there to sense things. The child is there to inhale and familiarize. So, izisukulo zekaya are these charms that, but we'll talk about that some other day. So, izisukulo zekaya are other forms of portals. Other forms of portal. I remember this one time, 2023, I came across this tree. This tree called Umsinzi. It's a Cape coral tree, and it was around August, so it's budding. It's got these little seeds inside. They are red. I mistakenly thought it's the same seeds as umkhok, because Cape coral tree Umsinzi, the seeds look exactly like umkhok. And then I went to look at the difference. I realized it's not the same. So umkhok the tree has a little red beads that you can take and put in your wallet. But you don't do things you don't know. That's all I can say. If you don't know it, don't do it, because you will attract not only good things but also bad things. And that's another thing about attraction that people don't understand. They take these salt, they wash with them, and then they get robbed that same week. They're like, this salt doesn't work. It works. It just makes you visible even to those who want to do bad things to you. I know, I want to be visible. You will be visible, but also to the bad thing. So you need to know how to mitigate that. You need to know how to mitigate that. Trust me, uzoshine, uzobengezela, uzokhazimla. You will kharaza, baba, but not only to good things, but also the bad. So when you use these things, they open up certain aspects, certain portals in your life. You must align with the lifestyle. You must align with the lifestyle. You go take muti there so that your boyfriend can love you, your boyfriend loves you, and criminals love you as well. Car accidents love you as well. Because you are visible to everything. So you need to understand you need to understand what you need to respect in that moment when you use that. Kumele uhloniphe. You're going to groove, man. You're using muti the previous night. What do you expect is going to happen? You'll shine to the sugar daddy who has many tikoloshes there. He will take you to his house. You'll sleep with tikolosh, and then you come back crying. Hey, every night there's something raping me. Because you don't understand that you need to maintain sacredness when you do certain things. Same as women in their periods need to be careful. Wear long stuff, cover your head. For now, that's all I can say. Wear long stuff, cover your head. Quality of your life will change. I mean, women should even be on holiday when they're on their period. But that's for another day. Guys, so it's what I was saying. Portals, holes, apertures. When the ancestors tell us about our origins, we came out of the reed, literally out of a stick or a stalk of uhlanga. We came out of holes in the ground. The first of our ancestors, the first kings, came out of the ground, came out of holes. It's portals, some are in the body. But remember, whatever we are, we also represent or we symbolize whatever is in nature, whatever is on the ground, and so is above. So how do we then begin learning about these alignments? Someone was asking, where do we start? These alignments, it's not one specific area, it's every area in indigenous life. So what you want to do is to understand indigenous cosmology in its fullness. Indigenous cosmology in its fullness. Understand the rites of passage. Learn about indigenous rites of passage. From when a child is not even born, when a child is conceived. In fact, even the action of copulation, even the action of making a child. You do know that when we are making a child, there's something there that is released, we call umlaza. After you have had knowledge with another, there are places you shouldn't go to. I'll make an example. It's been season, initiation season. You can't lay with your partner today, with your woman today. You enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. It's nice. And then you wake up in the morning, you go to initiation school. You can't do that. You can't. Because what you were doing, the action is not evil, but the energy does not align with the energy that's harnessed there in that place. In that place, you need a specific type of energy. In that place, we deal with hunger, we deal with fasting, we deal with denial. Kuyazilwa ngesintu, ngesiXhosa, ngesiZulu. Kuyazilwa. That's a place of death. That's why we take soil from the ground, the dust of the earth. We put it on our bodies to say we are corpses now. You are a corpse now when you are a twasa. You are a corpse. You're not living anymore. You will live someday. And when you live, generally there's blood, because blood is life. Generally there's fire, because fire, just like, is a refinement tool. Fire is one of the most primordial technologies. Fire is one of the most primordial technologies. So fire, blood, water, and earth. Hey. Talk about baptism. You know, when you are busy making the ceremony there in your house, you are busy there. Ceremony, you are making mkomboti. Mara, you are not sleeping at home. What kind of ceremony are you making? You must sleep where the mkomboti is boiling there. It's fermenting. You must be there next to it. You must smell it when you sleep. And that's when you will have clarity and alignment. So alignment does not begin with reading online. Alignment begins with understanding when a child, the action of conceiving a child, what are the measures to take and why? And then when a child is conceived, what are the measures to take and why? And when a child is born, what are the measures to take and why? Why did I start with sex? Because it is what brings life to this earth. Birth is the process of bringing life to this earth. Then when that child is born, you want to follow their life. They will pass through different stages. That's how you understand the indigenous cosmological process. By following the child of a life, the life of a child, from pre-birth to post-birth, from pre-birth to burial, and after burial, what do we do? You see, when you understand these things in detail, I can promise you, you will not be confused. Everything else aligns with that. We've got a very rich cosmological understanding of things, and our indigenous way of doing things is aligned. Our industry, our economics, every single aspect has its own rites of passage, its own secret knowledge. So the industry of refined blacksmithing, goldsmithing, mining, making of weapons, that's got its own process. The industry of agriculture, pastoralism, that's got its own cosmology. We'll deal with those things. So how do you start? You start by learning the most basic things. The role of every element in nature in making sure that a person is born into this world and a person lives fully and a person is buried with dignity. That timeline involves understanding the role of the sun, involves understanding the role of the moon, the stars, the water, the soil, the kraal, why we build round houses. I will do my best to share as much as I can. And then I do have sessions that I run privately now. This is not TikTok stuff. It's at cost. Those want to learn in-depth knowledge of the language can always inbox me. And then, I currently have about 7 people. It's a 6-month program until next year, January. So that's on the side. I'm available on YouTube. This is going to be uploaded there. Sandile Tugani. Facebook, Sandile Tugani. Please follow, please share, download the videos, share them, cut them, cut the videos, in portions, share, whatever. You are allowed to do that. But the key here is to fix the disequilibrium we find ourselves in, the sickness we find ourselves in, and we fix the misalignments by realigning, recentering. So we are going back to the center. My name is Sandile wakwaThukane wasemamfeneni. My name is Sandile, ndingucansi, ndingunsandlalanca, ndinguntlabamkhosi, ndingungubo emhlophe, ndingumalukazi, ndinguzaba, ndingumazabiwe, ndingudlelanga, udlebenkomo, urhiba, urhamatu, uphofolo, ndithi camaku. Thank you, Brother Limakara, and thank you guys for the gifts. Always, guys, don't forget to gift even the guests. They make this whole thing amazing. And thank you for engaging, guys. It's really amazing, Thank you for engaging. We will continue tomorrow. I guess then I will continue with this topic tomorrow as well. I will start on the moon, the sun, and time. Our understanding of time is kati, umkati, ubukati, ixesha, ilixa, and the moon. I will do that. Iskati, umkati, ubukati, ixesha, ilixa, and the moon. We're going to talk about time, space, distance. We're going to talk about the space-time continuum, and we may get into a bit of quantum theory there. Tamago. And remember, always share the live. Always share the live. No, every single black person is First Nation. In fact, we are all indigenous to South Africa, but we need to respect, man. We need to respect history. The people who claim being First Nation, they don't know nothing about the history of this land. The oldest history, man, the First Nation is nature. The true First Nation is the water. The true First Nation is the earth, the land. The true First Nation is the plants. That's the mindset we should be having, because we are these things in human form. Amago.